Good Shabbos, everyone. Good Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom. This is for the Shabbat of the 28th of Tevet, which begins in the evening of Friday, January 16th. This is called Mevarachim Mevarachim Chodesh Shabbat. This is all of the Shabbat which precedes the beginning of the new month, and the appearance of the new moon is called Mevarachim. So this is the Shabbat Mevarachim for the month of Shvat, which begins on Sunday night. So the new moon will appear if we have a clear enough sky on Sunday night. We might be able to see a sliver of a moon. Or on Monday night, but either way, the moon, the new month begins on Monday, the month of Shvat. This week's parasha is Parashat Vaera. It is the second parasha in the book, in Sefer Shemot, the book of Exodus. And it is in this parasha that we find the verses upon which the custom of having 4 cups of wine or glasses of wine at the Pesach Seder is derived. So the Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud, asks, Minayin la'arba akosot, where do we get this custom? On what verses do we derive this custom of 4 cups? And Rabbi Yochanan b'shem Rabbi Venaya says, Knega arba gu'ulot, that Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Venaya that it comes from 4 expressions of redemption. And those 4 expressions are V'hotzeti, V'hitzalti, V'ga'alti, V'lekachti. We'll see how that works in a moment. Literally it means, and I will bring you out, I will rescue you, I will redeem you, and I will take you. So in the verses from this week's parasha, I bold in the text that you can see on your screen the verbs that he just mentioned. So it says the section begins, V'gamani shamati et na'akat Yisrael, b'nei Yisrael, asher mitzrayim, me'avidim otam, ve'ezkor et briti. It says, now I have heard, God says, now I have heard the cries of the children of Israel who are in Mitzrayim, and because the Egyptians are oppressing them, and I will remember my covenant, or I have remembered my covenant. And then it says, Lachein emor livnei Yisrael. So, Moshe, speak to the children of Israel and tell them, Ani Adonai, I am Hashem, vehotzeti etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim, and I will bring you out from underneath the burdens of Mitzrayim, v'hitzalti etchem me'avodatam, and I will rescue you from their oppression, v'ga'alti etchem b'zoro netuya uvishfatim gedolim, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty judgments. Then it says, V'lekachti, so that's the 4th verb, V'lekachti etchem li la'am v'haiti lechem le'elohim, and I will take you to me to be a people, and I will become for you a God. V'yidatem ki ani Adonai Elohechem hamotzi etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim, and you will know that I am Hashem, your God, who freed you from the labors of the Egyptians. So you see the 4 bolded verbs there that upon which the custom of drinking 4 cups is based. There's a famous book. Well, first off, let me tell you, my teacher, Rabbi Arthur Green, is very well known as a rabbi. Outside of the Jewish world and outside of the rabbinical world, he is also known as a glass collector. He's an expert in a particular kinds of glass, and he has one glass. It's a type of white glass, a Kiddush cup. If I'm remembering right, I think he said it's about 300 years old. And engraved on the side of this glass Kiddush cup, it says Arba kosot keneged arba imahot. The 4 cups at the Seder correspond to the 4 mothers. So while the practice of using 4 cups is derived on these verses of the Torah, over centuries we have developed other mythologies and symbolisms and meaningful teachings around other things that the number 4 is connected to. So in this case, it's connected to the 4 mothers. There's a very, namely Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. There is a very famous book called the Shnei Luchot Brit by Rabbi Isaiah Horowitz of Prague, who was born in 1555, eventually made it to the Holy Land, Eretz Yisrael, and died there and is buried in Tiberias in Tiberia. And he, in the book Shnei Luchot Brit, writes about this practice that the 4 cups correspond to the 4 mothers. So he says, Arba imahot hem arba kosot. The 4 mothers are the 4 cups, or the other way around. The 4 cups are the 4 mothers. Probably a better way to say it in English. Sarah kos rishon. So Sarah is the first cup. Why is she the first cup? Because Sarah and Abraham were sort of the beginning of our people, of our ancestry. So just as Abraham was plucked out from the midst of the peoples in which he lived and told to go to another land, so too was Sarah. And just as Abraham brought people under the wings of the Shekhinah, meaning that he introduced them to the unity of being, into the one God, so too Sarah did this, brought people under the wings of the Shekhinah. So the first cup corresponds to Sarah, our first ancestress, Sarah Imeno, and the project of introducing the world to a unitive concept in which God is one. Rivka, Rebecca, is Kos Agada. She corresponds to the part of the Seder called Magid. It is sort of the storytelling section of the Haggadah, if you will. And why does that correspond to Rivka? He says that the telling of the story, matchil b'gnut u'misayem b'shevach, that the telling of the story begins with shame and ends with praise. So just as the story begins, Arami Oved Avi, my father was a wandering Aramean, meaning, that we say this overtly in the Haggadah, that our ancestors were idol worshippers. They worshipped idols and the stars and the constellations and so forth, and that's understood as gnut. It's disgraceful. And then through the arc of history, we are aiming to become committed to and striving to become committed to the unity of being in the unity of God. So just as our story in the Haggadah begins about our people beginning in slavery, or beginning with idol worship and going to freedom or going to redemption, it says it says that Rivka is also like this because of her sons Esav and Yaakov. So Esav is the older son; they're twins. Rivka gives birth to Esav first, so he is understood as the older twin. He's born first, and that's sort of the disgrace. Esav becomes sort of the archetype, the metaphor, the avatar of everything that our rabbis believed Judaism should not be. So Esav becomes the symbol of the Roman Empire, for example. Then Jacob is born second. He is a studious, and he's a homebody, and he's Rivka's beloved son. He is renamed Israel and becomes which is the namesake of our people. So he is the praiseworthy one. So we begin with Esau, which is Gnut, and then we move to Yaakov, who is praiseworthy, who is Shevach. So this is why the second cup is associated with Rivka. Rachel is the Kos Birkat Hamazon. So the third cup of wine is said when we begin the blessings after the meal, and this corresponds to Rachel, to Rachel, because it says Yosef bana kal kol Beit Yisrael v'hi hayta akeret that her son Yosef is only one of two sons that that Rachel gave birth to. At the beginning of the story, for whatever reason, she's unable to conceive, which in Hebrew is called akara. She's unable to conceive. It might not actually be her. Who knows? Maybe it was her husband Jacob. We don't know. Well, it's definitely not Jacob. Never mind. So Rachel is having trouble conceiving, and she eventually gives birth to Yosef. Yosef, he goes down to Mitzrayim, and because he is elevated to a high position within Mitzrayim, he is able to provide for all of the children of Israel when they come down to Egypt. And in fact, the Torah says he ends up providing for the whole world. So Rachel is connected to the cup of the Birkat Hamazon because Rachel is the mother who, even though she struggled with being unable to get pregnant for whatever reason, she eventually gives birth to a son who provides for the whole world. Leah connects to, it also completes there that reminds us that a woman is called Habait. In the rabbinical text, she is equated with the home, and sometimes is just referred to as Habait, as the home. So it says, "In beracha mitzuya beveito shel adam ela b'shvil ishto," that blessing is only found in the house because of the wife. Leah corresponds to the fourth cup. Leah birkat hashir kos revi'i. So at the end of the Haggadah, there's a section called Hallel, in which we sing a bunch of psalms and verses that we are familiar with from the Shabbat and holiday service in the morning. And how is it that Leah is associated with the fourth cup? And it says all types of praise, any type of praise there is within our people, derives from Leah, who said, "Hapa'am odah et Hashem." This time, she said, after she gave birth to Judah, "This time I will express my gratitude to God." Umimena ba na'im zmirot de Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom. And from her also comes all the melodies and songs of Moshe, our master. So Rebbetzin Chana Bracha Siegelbaum goes further with this and speaks about each of the four cups with relation to the mother. So the first cup corresponds to Sarah. The first cup, she says, corresponds to the first of the four languages of Geula, which is, "I will bring you out from under the burdens of Mitzrayim." This promise, she says, comprises physical liberation. When we drink the first cup, it is good to meditate and pray for removing our physical suffering. Sarah was the first woman who integrated the emunah, the faith in Hashem, in the very fiber of her body. In this way, she created the spiritual genetics from which the Jewish people would issue. The first cup is the cup of Kiddush, which elevates and celebrates this day, the Pesach celebration, from any other day. Likewise, Sarah was the first woman to become separate from all other people in the world. With Rivka, she says the second cup corresponds to the second of the four languages, the four utterances, the four connotations of Geula, of redemption. "I will deliver you, v'hitzalti etchem." I will deliver you out of their bondage. This promise, which is connected to Rivka, includes delivery from both physical and spiritual enslavement. We may not be aware, but many of our actions derive from various unconscious scripts imprinted in our psyche from childhood wounds and traumas, which cause fears, jealousy, and anger. So although Rivka came from a severely dysfunctional family, she was able to heal her childhood wounds by attaching herself to holiness. It says, even at a very tender young age, she was not afraid to detach herself from family and familiar environment in order to follow a strange man to an unnamed place, namely following Eliezer back to the land so that she could marry Isaac. When we drink the second cup, it is good to meditate and pray for removing all our attachments and addictions. This cup also has the ability to free us from the confinement to performing our mitzvot only out of habit because we are expected to and without conviction and excitement. Rivka was totally in touch with her neshama, and all her actions were permeated with her spirit of enthusiasm. The third cup is Rachel. The third cup corresponds to the third of the four languages, Geula v'ga'alti etchem bizroa netuya. Hashem promised to bring our redemption in the merit of our mother Rachel's ultimate love of Israel. In her selfless mercy, she overcame her jealousy and allowed her sister to marry Jacob in order to avoid embarrassing her. And the fourth cup corresponds to Leah. The fourth cup corresponds to the last language, V'ga'alti etchem, I will redeem you, and you will become, L'kachti etchem, I will take you and you will become for me a people. So with the fourth cup, with the birth of Judah, Leah realizes that it is necessary and worthwhile to experience all her previous suffering for the sake of giving birth. When we drink the fourth cup, it is good to meditate and pray for strengthening our relationship with Hashem, that we may experience the connection with God both during prayer and in everyday life. May we learn from Leah to always recognize, thank, and praise Hashem for bestowing us with continuous blessing. So, sending you all blessings for a Shabbat Shalom.